Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 18, 2007, the gentlewoman from Ohio, Mrs. Tubbs-Jones, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18 reads as follows. Then Jonathan said to David, "Tomorrow is the new moon festival. You will be missed because your seat will be empty." Tonight, the Congressional Black Caucus and the Indiana delegation pause to celebrate the life of a great woman whose seat now stands empty here in the House of Representatives. Congresswoman Julia Carson. Congresswoman Carson passed away this past Saturday after a long bout with lung cancer. And while her seat is empty, her spirit lives on in our hearts. She was unique. She often reminded me of the elders in my family. They are strong in their convictions and don't pull any punches when making their point. Yet they have a witty and humorous way about them that can disarm even their most ardent opponent. That was Congresswoman Julia Carson. Even though she was in her last illness, she did not let that stop her from advocating on behalf of her constituents. And she never complained. She always greeted you with a warm smile and that unmistakable humor which always made you feel good. She was a trailblazer, born in poverty and racial segregation to a teenage single mother. She came up through the political ranks to become the first African-American and woman elected to Congress from Indianapolis. A strong advocate for her constituents, she was not afraid to take a stand, be it popular or unpopular. I want to, at this point, ask for unanimous consent that all members will have 5 days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
In addition, I would love to add to, you seek unanimous consent to have an article that was in today's roll call that was written by her predecessor, Andy Jacobs, as a guest observer, and it was called Remembering Congress's Jewel Named Julia. And it's a wonderful article, and I won't go through it because we have a lot of people here who want to speak on behalf or speak about their remembrances of our wonderful colleague, Julia Carson.
Without objection, the article will be inserted in the record.
Thank you very much. I'm going to begin with the Dean of the Indiana delegation, Representative Dan Burton. I want to say to my colleagues, we have an hour, but I would ask you to restrict your comments to about 2 minutes so we can include everybody in the time. Representative Burton.
Well, I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I want to thank the Black Caucus for taking this special order tonight. Julia Carson was a friend of mine, a friend of Steve Booyer. We traveled back and forth on the plane from Indianapolis to Washington on a regular basis, and we got to know each other. And Julia was a wonderful person, very highly regarded by the people of Indianapolis. In fact, she's the only woman in the history of the city who was recognized as Woman of the Year by the Indianapolis Star twice. And that honor came to her by readers of the paper voting for her. And that was quite an honor that's not been bestowed upon any other woman in the city's history. The thing I really liked about Julia was that even though she was a Democrat and I was a Republican, we worked together on a lot of issues that were very important to central Indiana and the city of Indianapolis. I remember one case in particular that dealt with the Children's Museum, and I talked to Julia about it, and she took the bull by the horns and worked very hard to make sure that the problems we had with the Children's Museum was resolved, and I really admired her for that. Her predecessor and her buddy, Andy Jacobs, to whom you just referred in that article, really loved her like a sister. Andy served here for, I think, 28 or 30 years, and he's a very dear friend of mine. And Andy has told me on a number of occasions the great contributions that Julia made to him and his staff when she worked for him before she became a congresswoman. She was a state representative. When Andy was defeated in 1972, he urged her to run for the Indiana House of Representatives, and she did. She was elected, and she was later elected to the Indiana State Senate. And then she ran for the Center Township Trustee's job in Indianapolis and was elected to that. And the thing I talked about yesterday when we were acknowledging Julia that I didn't know much about until just recently was that When she took over the Center Township trustee's job, it was in a chaotic situation. And she was able to take care of the needs of the people of Indianapolis that really needed help, and at the same time to reduce the budget of the trustee's office. And that was something that I think all of us, Republican or Democrat, really can admire. She was a very fine congresswoman. She was a very fine person. She always had a smile for everybody, and I really appreciated knowing her. And she shall be missed. And I think that she's probably in heaven looking down on us right now. And Julia, you did a good job. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I've been advised that I could seek unanimous consent to have additional time in light of the number of people who have come out to speak on her behalf. So at the appropriate time, I'm going to seek that we have additional time. I would like to now yield to my colleague and good friend, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Kilpatrick, and I had the opportunity to visit with Congresswoman Carson a couple weeks before her passing. It was a wonderful chance. Our chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Carolyn Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, members of the House of Representatives, and people across this great nation of ours. We have lost a jewel in Julia Carson. I met the Congresswoman some 30 years ago, and she from the legislature in Indiana and I from the legislature in Michigan. We served 18 years together in those legislative bodies and then came here together in 1997 to begin our tenure in the United States House of Representatives. She from Indiana, me from Michigan. We both got assigned to the Financial Services Committee our first term. She from Indiana and I from Michigan. And together during this 10 years of journey, we have worked together here in this United States House of Representatives. Courageous, bold, smart, intelligent, compassionate, all those things that you want in a public servant, Julia Carson was that. To the people of Indianapolis, the state of Indiana, you have lost a jewel. And all that we ask in this body of 435 of the most powerful people in the world, as well as the 100 most powerful people in the Senate, is that you send us another Julia Carson, intelligent, bold, compassionate, a coordinator, one who speaks for the people that she represents. Ms. Carson and I have had many battles and many struggles together. As was mentioned earlier by our chairperson of our Ethics Committee, who's handling this special order tonight, she and I were in Indiana, in her room with her 2 weeks ago. She looked beautiful. Her skin was radiant. Her heart was strong. And she said to us, thank you. Thank you to us as her sisters, and thank you to the people of Indiana who have been with her for over 30 years. It is important that we come together tonight as members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as members of the Indiana Caucus, because we know she lives. We know she's in these walls and looking upon us now. What you doing, girl? What y'all talking about? Thank you, Julia. We love you, my sister. At this time, I'd like to put a statement in the record from Congresswoman Donna Christensen, who had to go back to her district and could not be here tonight. So with unanimous consent, Madam Leader, I'd ask that this be put into the record of the House of Representatives. And as we continue in our journey today, let's take a little bit of Congresswoman Julia Carson with us. Dedicated, compassionate, take no prisoners, speak for the least of these. Thank you, my sister, and may you rest in peace.